Hello, fellow humans. Chris here again. So, today I wanted to talk about ideas and old ideas, new ideas, potentially archaic ideas, and just rules and values that we kind of cling to. And also, I want to talk a little bit about mediocrity. Um, how am I bringing all this together? Well, I've been thinking this week about the events that happened earlier in the week, the tragedy in Texas, and I've always enjoyed watching these videos on crimes, like crime documentaries or interrogation videos, and kind of just getting into the psychology of those things. And I think that when we look at the justice system in this country, I think it's pretty clear that there's something wrong. I've talked about this before as well. We talked about Brandon Bernard last year. He was executed for a botched robbery that happened when he was 17. A lot of the people that he was with are already free. And then you have someone like Susan Smith, who murdered her two toddler sons 25, 30 years ago. And she's actually up for parole in a couple years. And then you look at somebody like Casey Anthony, who wasn't even convicted at all. Why I bring all these up is I think about the Constitution. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the rights as guaranteed by the Constitution. But I also acknowledge that the Constitution was written by a lot of white privileged slave owners a long, long time ago. And I'm also aware that a lot of the rights and freedoms that were guaranteed in this document, the Bill of Rights, were not meant for everybody at the time. There had to be amendments made later to include more people. And finally, I'm also aware of the fact that we are in a vastly different world than we were then. So I absolutely believe in the right to a fair trial. I believe in I believe in innocent until proven guilty. But my problem, much like my views on the death penalty, which I think I've talked a little bit about before as well, the application of these so-called values and beliefs that we cling to so strongly in our culture, that are the inconsistency with which some of these ideas are applied gives me pause and makes me wonder about it. This has to do with, obviously, when it comes to the right to a fair trial, but also with the Second Amendment and how we kind of cling to the right to bear arms, which I believe in that also. Again, when we look at the group of people that wrote this document, I find it a little bit ridiculous to cling to it the way we do. Now, that's not to say that I don't believe in it, again. But the idea that we can't adjust the parameters, kind of clarify some things with the context of where we live today, as opposed to the society that they lived in at the time they wrote that bill. I've always found it kind of interesting that the Second Amendment doesn't have the word gun in it, or firearms in it, or weapons, but it does have the phrase well regulated. I've always just kind of thought that was interesting and probably worth discussing a little bit. When we selectively hold on to these ideas of the past that we put so much stock in, without keeping in mind the people that wrote those, who they were, what they believed, what world they lived in, I think we're missing an important part of the conversation. And we are collectively, and I include myself in this, we're allowing tragedies to continue to happen because we're not being honest with ourselves and our leaders about the problems that are contributing to these horrific events. So while I believe in the ideas of personal freedoms and I believe in the right to a fair trial and innocent until proven guilty, Japanese Americans from the 1940s probably would have something to say about the rights guaranteed by the Constitution, as would a lot of people. Blacks in the civil rights era, women in the suffrage era. History has shown that we have to make amendments all the time to kind of patch up some of the details that might have been missing in some of these sacred documents that we cling to. When we blanket an issue with the Second Amendment to basically say that precludes any meaningful change, we're doing a disservice to not only the victims and their families, but the conversation is just missing an important step, and we're missing an opportunity to have real discussions and to work through these problems that just keep happening over and over and over. I think that until we have real equality, real equal application of justice as it's interpreted in the Constitution, the rights and guaranteed in the Constitution don't really exist. They're just sentences on pieces of paper, and they can be taken away. Just like George Carlin said, rights aren't rights if they can be taken away. They're just privileges. They're temporary privileges. So the conversation almost needs to happen separate of the Constitution. Or we need to have a serious conversation about the Constitution's applicability today. Anyway, just something I was thinking about. Have a great rest of your day. Remember, don't be afraid to question the consensus.